Good morning. Welcome to the Heritage Foundation and our Lewis Lehrman Auditorium. We, of course, welcome those who join us on our heritage.org website on all of these occasions. For our in-house guests, we would ask that courtesy to see that our mobile devices have been silenced or turned off as we begin. For those watching online, you're welcome to send questions or comments at any time, simply emailing speaker@heritage.org. And of course, we will post today's discussion on our website for everyone's future reference as well. Leading our discussion and welcoming our special guest is Ambassador Terry Miller, who serves us as the Mark A. Kolokotronis Fellow in Economic Freedom. He is also director of our Center for International Trade and Economics. In his role, he directs Heritage's ongoing research in the role of free markets and trade in fostering economic growth here and around the world. He also oversees the publications of Heritage's annual Index of Economic Freedom. And prior to joining us here at Heritage, Ambassador Miller was a diplomat and public servant throughout his distinguished career. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Terry Miller. Terry?
Thank you, John. Well, the title of today's event is On the Path to Prosperity, a case study of economic reform in Lithuania. But I would have to say that Lithuania is not on the path to prosperity. Lithuania has arrived at prosperity. Indeed, it's one of the great success stories of Europe and of the world as a whole. When we first started looking at the Lithuanian economy in the Index of Economic Freedom back in 1996, the score was 49 on our 0 to 100 scale, the economic freedom score. That's a category we consider actually repressed, lacking in economic freedom. And over the ensuing years, that score has risen by over 25 points. The ranking was 100th in the world in 1996. Now it's come up to 19th in the world and 11th in Europe. I would say on that 19th, Lithuania just got passed by the United States this year, which is in 18th. So watch out, we're coming after you. In any case, there's a lot that's good to talk about. Lithuania has stabilized now as a mostly free economy. That's a very good position to be in terms of the world. It's a high-income country now. It's got good growth rates, particularly in the context of a highly developed economy and a European economy. It's got one of the best tax regimes in the world. Although I have heard disturbing reports that perhaps there are plans to change that, and maybe we'll hear more about that as we go on through the discussion. Also, we noticed a large improvement in investment freedom this year in our index, so that's another very positive thing that we have recorded, an achievement for the government and for the minister. We do have a few concerns that we note in the Index of Economic Freedom. One is a rather long-term loss of population or loss of the workforce. And I think that's of concern to see out-migration. That's not something we experience here in the United States, and I'm not quite sure how that impacts society or economic development, but that's certainly something we'd like to hear about as the discussion proceeds. We did pick up a decline in one of our indicators of economic freedom called government integrity this year for Lithuania. That's a score, an indicator that reflects opinions about corruption more than anything else from within Lithuanian society itself. So we did register a decline in the index score there this year, while the overall score was remaining stable. The other thing that I just heard about in the news this week is a new law being introduced in Parliament that might criminalize criticism of the Holocaust period. And that's something that raises concerns about human rights and freedom of speech that also just might raise questions in the minds of some about where we're going. And that's something we'd also like to hear about in this discussion today. Joining us to discuss these issues and more, we're honored to have the Minister of Economy of Lithuania, Virginijus Sinkevičius. He's been Minister of Economy since November of 2017. He's a member of Parliament. He was chair of the Committee on Economics in 2016, 2017. He's deputy chair, before that, or maybe now, deputy chair of the Lithuanian Farmers and Greens Union political group. Is that a current thing? Yes? Has degrees from Aberystwyth University in Wales and Maastricht University in the Netherlands. So please join me in welcoming Minister Sinkevičius.
So, good morning, everyone. It's, of course, my privilege to speak today to you and briefly introduce the path Lithuania undergo in 27 years. Extremely short time for a country, but a great progress achieved during those years. And briefly, maybe, probably what's very important for us is always that we're competing, we're in a competitive environment where our laws, our work of our, I don't know, inspections, government, and etc. depends a lot when the investors are choosing the country to come to create jobs. And it's a key priority for us, for the Ministry of Economy, always to stay focused, always to overlook administrative burden and etc. in order to be number one in the region. And as you heard, our economic freedom index has improved, but we definitely have an ambition to be top 10. Maybe United States could be number 9 or number 1, but Lithuania definitely could make it to top 10. And of course, the progress was huge, and especially regarding business environment. Another ranking, which is ease of doing business, last year ranked Lithuania to number 16th in the world. It was a huge jump from 21st place, and it's also extremely important for us. But of course, additional steps are foreseen in the areas of licensing, business inspecting, compliance cost, competition law, and of course, attracting FDIs. All those are important because, as I said, in the region, within the European Union, we are competing between countries. Our neighborhood countries are competing for the same jobs, for the same FDIs as we do. So it's very important that we would look attractive, our laws look attractive, that it would be simple, the steps taken, how to open a factory, a greenfield investment, would be fast and convenient. So a little bit about the inspections reform and effective enforcement. So Lithuania has recognized the importance of reforming inspections as one of the key drivers for reducing inspection burden for businesses and strengthening regulatory policy and governments. This reform aimed at improving business environment as a crucial component of country's competitiveness. And only through effective supervision of businesses and compliance with rules, we can ensure that better regulation does what it should, creates trust in functioning society and in government without causing unnecessary burden. So we have consolidated inspection agencies from 62 up to 50, and now we're looking at consolidating it even more. So basically, the business, when it comes to it meets as less government officials as possible. Common supervisory IT system, of course, it's under construction, so it will allow supervisory institutions to perform risk-based screenings, plan and evaluate inspection activities, and manage measures required to control identified harmful effects. Data and data exchange between the various institutions is crucial for effective inspections, especially for risk management systems. Communication, data exchange with companies through the IT system will reduce the burden of inspection for the company's common IT system, will enable supervisory institutions to ensure transparency and manage supervisory activities more efficiently. just to let you know that Lithuania has great infrastructure. And by the infrastructure, I mean the broadband. We have the fastest Wi-Fi in the world. And probably this is the most important infrastructure looking at 50 years. Of course, we have a great roads, we have a port, we have a railways, but I think the infrastructure to create future jobs, first of all, is the broadband. And it's definitely #1 within the EU and within the world. The closest competitor to us is South Korea. So we are very proud of it, and definitely we are focusing a lot onto improving, onto putting everything into IT. Calculation of compliance costs for businesses. We realize the importance of well-organized evaluation of burdens that business is dealing with and constantly improving the existing tools to improve our business environment. The prevention mechanism of new administrative burden is well established in Lithuania. It is mainly based on 3 provisions. Institutions are required to calculate new administrative burden, which originates from a new draft legislation. The level of administrative burden created by draft legislation initiated by the authority must remain unchanged or be reduced over a period of calendar year. General level of administrative burden is calculated by the Ministry of Economy and twice a year reported to the government. Lithuania is in the process of taking the new challenge, moving from the evaluation of administrative burden to evaluation of compliance costs. Labor code was a long debate regarding a new labor code, which came into force January 2017 and brought greater flexibility to Lithuania's labor market. Notable features of the law include new types of contract, an increase in the legally permitted number of working hours, and reduced statutory notice periods and severance payments in cases of dismissal. So if you look at the EU, we always compare ourselves with the EU. If you would be tending to invest into Europe, our labor code is among the most competitive ones. Last time when I spoke with the investors from United States, they said that Lithuania is competing with Portugal. They were choosing between Lithuania and Portugal, and I was, of course, impressed because he said, okay, so it's completely 2 different countries. Why Lithuania and Portugal? Because it's completely different culture, attitude to work, and etc. And they said very easily, we compared labor code within the EU, and we chose the most flexible ones. Competition policy. The new amendments to the law on competition came into force also January 1st, 2018. It will reduce the administrative burden on business, will enforce more effective concentration supervision procedure. Coming back to FDIs, of course, important is attractiveness of Lithuania for foreign investment. Creation of favorable business environment for investors resulted in 2017 public enterprise Invest Lithuania, attracted 358 million euros foreign direct investment and 39 foreign investors. It will create more than 5,000 jobs in medium and high added value sectors. So it's extremely important for us, cooperation between the United States and Lithuania. I think today we came with the solutions which can create definitely jobs on the both sides of the ocean. And only strong and sound Lithuanian economy can serve as a great ally to the United States. We are planning to set up special regulation covering construction, land permissions, migration procedures, and special incentives for large, high-value added manufacturing projects. Lithuania competencies in IT and service center development have been recognized worldwide. Lithuania is the first in Europe for 4G coverage and third globally for 4G internet coverage. We have a great potential for rise of financial technologies and innovation. Our central bank created a sandbox principle where the startups in a fintech can come and try their product for 3 months in basically Eurozone pipeline, getting advice from our central bank. So only in past years, last 3 months, we attracted over 40 fintech startups to Lithuania, mainly from Israel. And we continuing this great job this year. Over 50 startups already moved to Lithuania. There are 7 operating free economic zones in Lithuania. Advantages of it include 0% corporate tax for the first 10 years, 50% discount on corporate tax over the next 6 years, 0% tax on dividends, 0% tax on the real estate. High quality manufacturing, deep technical expertise, and well-educated workforce are among the most recognized features of investment environment in Lithuania. Productivity. At the end of 2017, Lithuania established the National Productivity Board. The board monitors productivity developments, assesses the risks, and works on the proposals for future reforms, policy actions. The first annual productivity report will be published by the end of this year. Now we would like to speak on probably one of the biggest priorities for the Ministry of Economy. It's innovation, Industry 4.0, startups. So regarding innovation, Lithuania also undertakes the institutional reform to improve the innovation policymaking. The aim is to consolidate science, technology, and innovation system, and have the well-structured, smoothly functioning legal basis, clearly defined functions and responsibilities of public authorities. I can tell you straight away that example for us is, of course, Israel. I haven't seen better structured innovation, technology, infrastructure structure than Israel. Chief Science Office is extremely effective and a great, probably the best VC, which always takes risky decisions, but the country has grow extremely good fruits on it. And if you look at the autonomous cars, which is legal to test in Lithuania, we were the first in Europe to accept this law, which is the most advanced law on autonomous cars. Israel was one of the first ones to invest into company, which was a risk, absolutely, but then in the end of the day, it was sold for 45 billion. Industry 4.0. In 2017, National Industry Digitalization Platform, Industry 4.0, was established. The main objective of the platform are focused on increasing and strengthening Lithuanian competitiveness and productivity of the industry. To ensure the proper functioning of the National Industry Digitalization Platform, Industry 4.0, we have already established 5 thematic working groups that will address current challenges and will look at future related issues in the area of digital manufacturing services, promoting the digitalization, standardization, and legal regulation, human resources, and of course cybersecurity. In 2018, we are planning to prepare Lithuania's industry transformation strategy. I can only be happy that Industry 4.0 is moving fast, and we have guests from Germany actually looking at the examples of how fast digitalization is moving through Lithuania. But again, I said infrastructure has playing a great role here, and if in Germany you have to wait for a couple of weeks or a couple of months to get the internet, in Lithuania, if you're not gonna get it in 6 hours, it's already a big tragedy. Lithuania has developed an attractive startup ecosystem. A new immigration legislation which aims to attract non-EU entrepreneurs was adopted in 2017. Our institutions offer a wide range of support for beginner entrepreneurs, consultations, training, and regularly organized events such as Login Startup Fair. The government announced a number of additional measures aimed at further promoting startups. This includes the possible introduction of startup employee visa for high-skilled employees from non-EU countries, specific training programs for startups, and new venture capital fund. Additional tax measures designed to encourage entrepreneurship have been adopted in 2018. They include a 1-year corporate income tax holiday targeting startups. We're looking, of course, at additional measures which will be introduced shortly, and our aim is clear, by 2020 to be country #1 per capita in startups in EU. We're not looking at overtaking Israel there, but at least in the EU, we would like to be a #1 per capita. Skills mismatch. Important elements have been integrated in the policy making during the past few years to address a widely recognized challenge of the skills mismatch. One of the elements is the incentive for business to invest in upscaling. Our measures for raising qualifications and developing competences of employees include a package of incentives dedicated to foreign investors for funding employee trainings, development of sectoral competencies, employees and their capabilities to work with new technologies, supporting business initiatives in the area of on-the-job training, and small and micro companies in professional development of their companies. Taxation. In the tax area, a comprehensive tax system reform is being designed by the government to address high taxation of labor for low and middle income workers, as well as to reduce the shadow economy, to reduce social contributions, especially for middle income earners, and visit a reform of labor taxation would consolidate the payment of social security contributions at the employees level, along with the review of social security contribution. Just summing up, Lithuania did a great progress, but there is an ongoing project regarding improving our country's visibility, improving investment climate. As I said, we are always in a competitive environment, and we always seeking to be number one. But our growth is great, and if you look at GDP growth rate, which accelerated from 2.3 in 2016 to 3.8 in 2017, that was the fastest pace since 2012 and the fastest pace within the Eurozone. The overall economy remains very balanced. The general government was in surplus for the second year in a row. General government debt is on declining path. So the situation is stable, and I think this is the best time to look at exactly those administrative burden, at the bureaucracies, to shorten them, to cut them, and to welcome everyone who is ready to invest in Lithuania, who is ready to create jobs. And of course, I'm happy that Lithuania finally grew to that level when we coming to United States, meeting your president, and we can say that we're also ready to create jobs in the United States.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. We have some time for questions now. The Minister has agreed to take those. So I'm going to ask the first question while you're thinking about yours. You described upcoming tax reform, and you mentioned a lot of groups that you hope to relieve the tax burden. Yes, please. That you would be lowering taxes at the middle income level, perhaps for workers in some ways. Lithuania has a great balance fiscal stability right now. That's another thing we measure in the index of economic freedom, and your country scores very well. But if you're reducing the tax revenue for all these people, that's a good thing in itself. But are you worried about incurring deficits, or are there some tax increases in the plan as well?
I wouldn't like to go very broad with preparing tax reform within the government, because it's still not introduced to public. So, and first of all, it's the Minister of Finance responsibility, and I know that in upcoming weeks he's going to talk about it. My aim is, of course, to reduce taxation on labor costs, because this is the probably number one cause of first of all, startups, of young companies. This is probably the taxation which harms them the most. So my aim and my goal was, of course, in that taxation reform was to decline to make the taxation on labor costs lower. We, of course, looking at we have a flat rate of 15% of income tax. We're definitely looking at making it at least. My goal is to for startups, for new companies, to make them pay as late as possible. Maybe talking about dividend policy, when if you don't pay dividends, you don't pay income tax. Another thing important what we have from last year, it's 100% reinvestment. So basically, all your income you can reinvest into your company, and it's not going to be taxed.
Questions? please wait for the microphone, and then if you would state your name and an affiliation if you'd like, and then ask your question for the minister.
Okay, my name is Julia Rota, and I have been living in Italy in recent years. My family's Italian, working on behalf of economic and business development. And my question is, having lived in Italy, which has very high barriers to entry, taxes, regulations, forget Wi-Fi, I know exactly what you mean, and having also done similar work for Switzerland, which is a very different landscape, I don't think Italy is ready or capable now of doing what you're doing in terms of opening up its markets. Switzerland is much better, but also when they tried to reduce some tariffs and taxes, were threatened with punishment from some other Western nations in terms of raising tariffs and punishing them in trade. What has been Western Europe's reaction to what you and some of the other Eastern countries are doing, which I find really fascinating and interesting, and taking the lead on the Western side, which is slow, really slow?
Good question. I think, first of all, when our countries, the bloc of post-Soviet Union countries, Central and Eastern European countries, joined the EU, it was clear that the EU moves in different paces. It's two paces Europe. So the Western Europe was definitely moving way faster forward than the Central and Eastern European countries. And we received a great help from the Western countries. We chose our Western way, and in order to catch up. I don't think so it happened. It's still a gap exists, but of course our enormous growth is definitely because of help from the Western countries and of our cooperation. So so far we receive only help. We have different opinion on some innovation questions, and some countries are slower at digitalization, and they receive a pressure from the industries. But regarding reforms Lithuania is undergoing, they all very well welcomed by the Western countries.
Over here.
Anthony Kim with the Heritage Foundation. Once again, welcome to the Heritage Foundation, Minister. I want to say congratulations to your country, 100th anniversary of independence. That this is a very meaningful visit, and the Heritage Foundation is delighted to have you. I happen to be a big fan of your country, in terms of reform process and economic freedom. And I think I'm about to be a big fan of yours as well. So I hope our progress continues. My question is, I happen to pay attention to your still ongoing labor market reforms. A lot of different pieces of legislations. And you also mentioned that the ongoing mismatch, skilled labor, supply and demand. I want to connect to your point on how to attract more investment from other countries into Lithuania. Probably United States. I think that a lot of companies are still looking into Lithuania as a prime, a very attractive investment destination. Taxation, regulation, all seems to be fine, but labor regulation is still a bit uncertain. How do you put these all good policies together into practice? I mean, it's not easy to gauge that answer at this point, but I'm curious to know about your sort of plan or strategy. It may be a PR strategy, how you can let other countries and the rest of the world know that Lithuania is open for business. Related to that, I noted that Lithuania is becoming a very unique hub for energy trading. As of yesterday, I got to know that the U.S. Freeport will supply LNG to Lithuania, and given your strategic locations in Russia and all other variables there, could you make any comments on that new development on energy front? Thank you.
Okay, so with the energy, I think it's a great message, not only to Lithuania, to the region, but also a great message to our people. LNG terminal is a huge project. Usually, such projects are completed in 6 years within the world. If you look, Lithuania did it in 2 years and 4 months. Nobody did it as fast as we did. Why? We were independent country, but not independent energy-wise. We were dependent on a Gazprom, on the Russian gas, and it was the LNG terminal is a great leverage helping us, helping our people to decrease, to have a competitive gas prices, and of course become an independent country fully in energetic terms as well. Regarding marketing of the country, the great ways to coming to Heritage and speaking to your cameras and to you. Of course, spreading the word. I think the best ambassadors of our country, of course, first of all, are the companies. American companies who establish their businesses. Some of them, they took it as a risk, coming to Lithuania, as you said, the changes in the laws at that time, they were fast because we're a young country, still a young country. It's only 27 years. Lots of policies still establishing, and as I said, we always competing with other countries in the region, looking how to improve them, to make them better, to make them clear and easy, understandable for everyone, whichever country you're representing and coming to work and establish jobs in Lithuania. So I think companies like, I don't know, I can name a few, Western Union, Thermo Fisher, who came to Lithuania with the plan, aim, establishing 40 to 100 jobs. Today, they ending up with 1,500. This is the best marketing for our country. And we are always ready we are open for a dialogue with the companies, with our companies working in Lithuania, with foreign companies, in order to improve our labor code and in order to improve conditions. We're always ready and open to talk, to discuss, and to make improvements. One of them is actually patent box principle, which was discussed with foreign investors. At that time, I was serving at the parliament as the chairman committee on economics, and it was, I think, 3 months before the adoption of the new budget. And they talked about it that, this would definitely serve greatly, making a patent box for new patented products in Lithuania, 5% tax, which is the lowest in the EU. Ireland has 6, so we made it 5 to be number 1. They said it's probably impossible to make it in 3 months. It will take at least 9 months. In Washington, it takes over a year. I said, you will see in 3 months, we're going to have it by January 1st. It's going to be, the law is going to be there, and it was there. Now we have great friends from many life science companies who are talking about Lithuania as a great example, how swiftly we can move.
Another question in the back there.
Good morning. Arūnas Pemkis with the government consultancy FIPRA. I have been living and working in Lithuania for the last 25 years as a consultant. First of all, I'd like to just add one answer to your earlier question and then ask a question to the minister. When you asked a question about the reduction of taxes, specifically Social Security taxes, the minister had alluded to this in his presentation but did not answer to your question. There's still a relatively significant gray market for salaries, which does not really play into the statistics that you see about corruption and so on. With reduction of Social Security taxes, you will reduce the amount of taxable income for those people who are actually paying taxes, but you will take some of that gray market out, which will increase the revenues. So that will be compensated. Now, a question to the minister, actually for both of you. With the incoming large companies such as Google, the salaries that companies like Google pay, their internal policy is to pay salaries at a parity, regardless of whether they're in San Francisco or in Bulgaria or in Lithuania. What's happening is that some of these salaries in Lithuania are astronomical in comparison to the local averages. How does that play into the market demands and market supply and demand for people who are specifically working in those areas?
I can always say that we can as a government we can adopt many laws and try to look and analyze and forecast future, but usually the market dictates what's going to happen. nobody could predict that, you know, half a year ago, Lithuania is going to have couple hundred, one of the best experts in the world within the blockchain technology, making a crazy money, you know. None of the universities in the world prepared them, and market dictated it. Market showed the path. So I would say that, you know, the government involvement here wouldn't be smart, and sometimes we just let the free market to do its job.
That sounded like a perfect answer to me. More questions? Yes, over here.
Skomantas Pocius, PhD student at the University of Chicago and interning here at Heritage. Ačiū Jums už pokalbį visų pirma.
Sveiki.
Sveiki. So it's clear that technology and IT will be crucial going forward for the economy, and Lithuania's done a lot of good things there. And yet on the EU level, there's a lot of pressure to regulate, sometimes quite with draconian measures. I'd be curious to hear how you think that will impact the Lithuanian economy and the innovations that's going there, and whether your government is taking or plans to take any steps to counter those pressures.
Very good question. It's clear that within the EU there is a new measures, especially I would say against the traditional platforms who are running into some trouble, and Lithuania finds itself always on a different side of Western countries in this perspective. We always, with other smaller economies, we don't see such threat. It's very important, I think, that all those legislations which are discussed now in the EU, that the mechanism would be fought out, because what I miss, and it's usually the government's mistake, that, you know, sometimes laws can be written very well and they sound very well when you read them, but then when you try to implement them, it's impossible, or it puts extremely huge administrative burden. I'm not in favor of taxation and you know, collecting taxes by some of the platforms, because it's definitely going to have an impact on small and medium enterprises in Lithuania. Small and medium enterprises in Lithuania finally they finding out and they know what is eBay. I know it's going to sound funny when we have the fastest broadband, but they definitely were afraid of going and selling on eBay. Now, myself, we're launching an initiative, actually. eBay is coming to Lithuania to talk about it, spread the word, and etc. But if they're going to be, you know, responsible for collecting taxes from China, I don't know if that's going to attract them to sell on the platform. So again, all those initiatives must be, I understand the purpose, you know, to shrink the shadow economy, to collect taxes, but they must be very well thought.
Is there a question down here in the front?
Well, thank you, Minister. My name is Alex Miller. I am also an intern at the Heritage Foundation. Transitioning from a rank of 100 to 19 is truly remarkable. Outside of an increase in investment freedom, business freedom, as well as a greater competition policy, what do you hold to be of particular importance with respect to Lithuania's desire to join those among the index's quote-unquote top 10?
So as I mentioned, we definitely looking always and at the indexes and definitely analyzing lean where we're dragging our feet behind and definitely looking at improving the areas, lessening the administrative burden, making our market to operate as freely as possible without the government, without the government inclusions. But addressing maybe the question which was always here in the air, and we haven't spoke much about it, is emigration from Lithuania and decline of labor. This hurts us, of course, but we have to understand. It's probably very hard to understand, being American, born and raised in a free country, that the borders can be shut, they can be closed, and people cannot leave a country without the permission of KGB for 50 over years. And when those borders open, people are free to go and admire this wonderful world, to see. I also used it. I studied abroad. I lived in Washington, D.C., and enjoyed this time and returned to Lithuania. So it's very important to understand that people are free to move, and we definitely have established talent attraction agencies. You have heard about many initiatives of easing immigration procedures to Lithuania, receiving EU visas, and etc. But it's always very hard to compete and convince people that Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, is a better city than London, Paris, or Berlin. We're doing it, and I think we're quite successful at it. I think this year might be the first year in a while when we're going to have a balance or more people going to be living in Lithuania than it was in 2017, January 1st. So we're definitely tackling this, and we understand this as a threat to our economy. So that's why we are here, spreading the word that Lithuania is open to everyone who is ready to work, to pay their taxes. We're welcoming everyone there.
Maybe one more question down here in front.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel. I'm also an intern here at Heritage. Speaking of immigration and the need for labor, how do you feel that Lithuania and other countries in Europe balance the need for cheap migrant labor with the need to preserve distinctive cultures within their countries in the face of a pervasive unwillingness to assimilate that we see across Europe in general?
I would say that we are not facing this at the moment, at least Lithuania for sure. The immigration which is seen in Lithuania is mainly from the countries neighboring Lithuania, like Belarus or Ukraine. So it's very similar cultures, and we don't have any problems assimilating people there. As I said, everyone who is ready to work, pay taxes, grow their families, raise their children are welcome in our country.
Well, one more then.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ekaterina Sobol. I am with Russian news agency RIA Novosti. And of course, what can Russian journalists ask you? It's about yesterday you signed a very, very important agreement about LNG, I mean Lithuania. And can you talk a little bit about the price competition and how can you decrease supplies from Russia because of this agreement? Thank you very much.
It was MOU signed, which I wouldn't like to elaborate more as a Minister of Economy, because the Minister of Energy was here last week and could speak about it much more. But it's an important message to our people. It's an important message for our project, for LNG terminal, that we are diversifying. It's very important to note that LNG supply can come from the United States. It can come from other European countries. That we definitely have a competition within our market.
Okay. Well, would you please join me in thanking the minister for his remarks?